Hello there. What is going on, everyone? Today I'm going to be talking about Droidpocalypse 2019. What exactly is Droidpocalypse 2019? Well, I'm going to answer that question. Also have some giveaway winners to announce at the end of the video, so make sure you watch all the way to the end. So, Droidpocalypse 2019 is something that happened to me. If you have following me on social media, you've probably seen me post some kind of updates about this, and it was pretty much a nightmare scenario. I recognize that calling something a nightmare scenario might mean different things to different people, and this is totally a first world problem, and I recognize that because there's a lot of worse things that could happen objectively. But as it applies to gaming, I kind of call this one a nightmare scenario. So. I was fortunate enough to go to Gen Con this year. Thank you to FFG for allowing me the opportunity to work for them and to go to the con. It was awesome, and one result of that is I was able to gain access to an early copy of the Clone Wars core set, as well as an extra Droidica and B1 Battle Droid expansion. So had a lot of stuff to kind of work on after coming back home to sunny Florida, and not really being a big 40K gamer. Not really much of a 40K gamer at all. I have a few models, but not a whole lot of that. I have not really used to kind of like building and assembling models off of sprues. So, some of these proved to be a little bit challenging for me, and I think for some of you guys as well. That's one of the reasons why when I did my unboxings here, I actually went through the build so you guys could follow along. If you haven't already, check out some of those videos too. If you're a newcomer to something like Star Wars Legion, or you're not too familiar, I did kind of do the builds along with this, and it's just to kind of maybe make you feel a little better if you've taking your time kind of having or struggling a little bit with it. And the droids, particularly the B1 battle droids, did kind of prove to be a little bit on the more difficult side. Now, for 40K veterans, they'll laugh at that and say it's not that difficult. I understand that, but coming from a background where you had all these soft models where FFG has done before, it is more difficult, at least from my frame of reference. Particularly the arms were a little bit tricky because they're all holding the rifle together. It was a little tricky. So this past weekend, I spent a lot of time. I said, I'm going to go ahead and put these droids together, and I've got almost all of them put together. I got 2 full units of droids put together with a third one on the way, and I was getting ready to do that. And as I would, finish with one, I said, all right, now I'm going to paint them, and so I would prime them and painted them. They paint up extremely well. I have been using a lot of the Green Stuff World paints that they sent me, and the washes work really, really well. I've been using a lot of the Green Stuff World washes that went on great on here, as well as the metallic paints, which are really, 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 really nice. So that's why my Droidicas, I went with blue and purple for them. And then on top of these B1 battle droids, I put a little bit of bronze over them too, just a little bit to make them stand out. And then a little bit of gold on the foreheads to give them a little bit of different, But all in all, the painting was not hard. But it was, I was very satisfied with them. I was like, that's a pretty good spot, and I'll eventually base them, and I was getting them ready to go, and I did a second unit, and I was starting on them, and as you can see, I had done my ball mode for my first unit of Droidicas, and I had just finished painting them as well, and I was building my third unit of B1 battle droids. It was a very successful weekend. I got a lot of work done, and I dedicated a lot of time to it. So, I was pretty good. I forgot one key detail, though, because I kind of left all of these on one of my Magna Rack trays, because I always magnetize my minis, and I left them on the floor, but like pushed underneath a table, because I was building more stuff on the floor. So as I finished these, I put them on the tray, kind of slide them under the table, and I was out in the garage. That's where I do a lot of my work, and I forgot that school started this week. I have 3 young boys, all of which were starting school this week. And wouldn't you know it, I had left a big folder. It has all my Legion and Armada cards in there. And I was slotting, and it's starting to become a big, heavy 3-ring binder. It's a real heavy, and it zips up, and it's a great 3-ring binder. I left it out kind of on a chair. Well, in my children's efforts to get into the car and go to school in the morning, I had already left for work. I came home and I noticed my 3-ring binder is on top of my Magnarax. And this was, I think I came home for lunch. And I was going to go check on everything and see how some of the other things had dried because I had applied some washes to another set. And I came home to see this. This was my nightmare scenario. I almost lost it. I almost lost it. So if you followed me on social media, you will have seen this. I had a really hard time when I saw this. There's a lot of broken minis here. I think it was at least 6 of the B1 battle droids were broken. Some of them weren't totally broken, but were bent. And then both of the droidicas were broken, usually at the feet. Some of the gun tips were like bent and kind of like that. So yeah. Surprisingly enough, the ball droids didn't get touched, and then the back couple of battle B1 battle droids did not get touched. But there's a lot of body pieces over here. I posted this in the Star Wars Legion Facebook group. I posted it to Facebook and Twitter. I was having a hard time. Now, I have to give a shout out to my amazing wife, Sarah, who was incredibly supportive during this. And, you know, a wife can react a lot of different ways when her husband kind of goes down like I don't know, I'm almost having a nervous breakdown over this. Because I had spent so much time, and it's not even an issue of like, oh, I could just buy another one or replace it. Like, you can't get these right now unless you're going to spend like $300 off of eBay to buy one of these scalper things. They're not replaceable right now. And they were very, very difficult. My hands still had bits of dried glue on them from trying and failing to, do all of these little bits. So I was like almost exhausted from putting these together, and I was so happy that I was done with my battle droids, and now I'm like, oh, and the thing is, it hit just enough of both units to like, basically render I hadn't even gotten a battle report in with them. I hadn't got to play with them yet. Of course, it's not a full army's worth that I have, but I could have proxied something else in there and gotten up to 800 points. I hadn't even got to use them yet, and they're done. They're just destroyed. And so I went through the pieces, and I was just like, it's so bad. So this was my nightmare scenario, and yes, but Sarah was just really, really helpful, and she understood. She didn't like dismiss it as, oh, it's just plastic, it's just toys, get over it. But she also didn't try to overwhelm me with she was just she was just perfect throughout the entire thing. She recognized, she understood what I was going through. She apologized, and it wasn't her fault. And it was on the kids' side of the car. I know that they bumped into it. And I wasn't even mad at the kids. What made me so frustrated is I was mad at myself because I left the domino effect. I left the things in just the right position where somebody just walking by is going to bump it and knock it over. It was totally my fault. So, yeah, that's a real bummer. And I had nobody to be mad at, but I was mad. But I kept it in, got it under control, and the rest of the story is about how you can try to turn a bad situation into a better situation. So the first thing is, and some of you, a lot of you guys were really cool too online, and I got a lot of sympathy and even some helpful suggestions like, hey, this would make great terrain, or I was thinking like taking some legs and arms and heads and putting those on the bases for my clones. And I was like, that would look really, really cool basing for the clones. I thought that would be awesome. For one thing that I did is I kind of arranged my clones a little bit differently, and and just kind of said, I almost had like a Toy Story effect going on there. Like I was thinking, what if my kids didn't actually do it, and all these minis came to life when I went to work, and Obi-Wan led the clones on a charge against the droids. And then the last thing is Obi-Wan pulled this binder down with the Force to kind of make it look and blame it on the kids because this is a totally believable scenario, right? Who knows, right? But so like there's ways to kind of make the most out of it, and by all rights, it would look great as basing options for some of the clones, and maybe I'll do that someday, but I can't do that right now because I can't replace these droids, and I still want to be able to play Separatists as well. I want to be able to play everything at least a little bit, and then maybe one day once droids are more readily available, then I'll take some of these and But basically, I tried to fix them. And some of them were able to be glued back together. Some of them were kind of clean breaks. and I could glue them back together. The Droidicas actually went back together pretty well because they were all breaks at the hinges of the legs, and while they don't actually have a built-in hinge, they snapped right there, and I was able to put some glue and then bend them right back, let them dry, and give them a little while, and they kind of went back, no problem. So that's mostly good. The real difficult scenarios were where certain ones bent. And bending was pretty tricky because you have somebody that's just standing sideways right now, and then to get them back up, he's probably going to break when you try to bend him back up, and he might break in multiple different places. So that did happen with some. So at the end of the day, there was I think 4 that I just couldn't just normally glue back together. And one of the problems is especially if it broke on a place where it had already been glued, because I'm using Loctite Ultra Gel Control Super Glue. I know a lot of people suggest different types of glues, but I'm very comfortable with Loctite. But the one problem I do have is sometimes if you try to glue something too many times, it'll dry and you'll just have this sheen of dried glue. And at a certain point, you're not gluing plastic to plastic anymore. You're gluing glue to glue, and it doesn't like to sit there that way. So I had one piece that I was holding, and after a minute, I finally let go, and it just fell. And I'm like, ah. So I'm trying to look for some clever solutions. And so I came up with this, and it's a Tamiya white putty. And it's kind of, I was thinking of trying some green stuff, but I was up at Hobby Lobby and I said, well, maybe they'll have some kind of green stuff. And I wasn't sure how this would work, so I picked it up and then looked up some YouTube reviews on it. And, it comes out kind of like thick paint, and it basically handles like spackle. And it was able to, I was able to form a cast around parts of droids that just would not glue and would not stay together. This droid on the far left here was broken on both legs, and so it was especially hard to get him to stand up straight because he also had bent just a hair. And so if I would glue and I'd get it on there and I'd hold it, and it was at the angle, it had broken at a diagonal angle, so then it would start to slide down and then fall off, so it just wouldn't stay. And granted, if I had the patience of someone better than me and I could just literally hold it there for 30 minutes straight, I'm sure it would have stayed. But I also wondered well, how firm is that going to be? So this Tamiya white putty is deliberately made for plastic models, and it's going to dry in a hard plastic form, bonded everything together. So that much is really cool. Now, one thing I will point out is the second from the left is a leader. Some of these, I matched up the wrong pieces to other ones, and I don't really have a problem with that. At first, I was I think I just glued the wrong legs onto this guy. Oh, well, you know what? So be it. That's part of the hobby is being able to mod them anyway. So my leader now is got the wrong legs on, because the leader normally is holding the binoculars and standing up straight. Well, now the leader is kind of almost looks like he's farting or something like that, because he's got the bent legs and he's leaning forward a little bit. So I don't think those were the ones that were supposed to go on him. But that's fine. And again, these guys might become terrain at some point in the distant future once more battle droids are available, and I'm looking to get creative. But for now, I want them to be able to stand up, and I want them to be sturdy, and I want to be able to pick them up and not have pieces fall off in the middle of a battle and things. And I think this putty was the right way to go. So that was cool, and it got me thinking, well, hey, maybe I can do some other things. Because if any of you have assembled droids before, one of the hardest parts, not hardest parts, but one of the most frustrating parts is that the heads. You have the long snout part, and then you have the little back part of the head, and those two go together to form almost like a J shape of the head, and then once that's dry, then you can put it down. Well, the problem is that little back part of the head is very, very tiny. It's the smallest piece that you're going to see, and when you're putting them together, it's happened to me a couple of times where it just pops out of my hand, or when I'm snipping it, it falls down, bounces off the table, and or bounces out of a box or whatever, and so one actually got lost. So I had this rocket trooper that I just could not find the back of his head anywhere. It's probably in my garage somewhere, but just could not find it. And so I just decided to glue his head on, and it was going straight up. It looked terrible, and I figured, well, now that I tried some of this white putty, and I was able to put a little bit on the back of his head, and now granted, I will have to go back and sand it and repaint it and everything, but I'm just kind of I deliberately didn't want to repaint it yet so you could specifically see where it was going. So now his head is actually on there properly. So now I've basically fixed all of my droids, And now I'm also, making more improvements with some of this putty. So that was pretty cool. But then I got thinking about General Grievous. I had made a post in, I think, the Star Wars Legion Facebook group, and this is where it's going to get pretty cool, because I had made a post and we were talking about, hey, well, what if I did some lightsaber nunchucks? You guys know that's kind of my thing. It's like my logo, lightsaber nunchucks or whatever. Grievous has got 4, and so I could maybe, what if he was holding them here? Now, I realized I posed my Grievous, and he had his stuff kind of far apart, because it would be kind of cool to pose them close together so you could have the nunchucks hanging down in front of him. So I was like, well, maybe if I did them on the side, so I went and got a chain when I was up at Hobby Lobby, and tried to use some of this putty. I was thinking I could probably glue them together, but I don't know if the metal is going to glue as well to the plastic. Let me try it with this putty. So yeah, this is kind of how Grievous is started to come together, with kind of breaking parts of this chain. Now it's a big chain. This chain isn't like normal nunchucks, only have a much shorter link of chain. But if you've ever watched Thundercats, Panthro had a chain sometimes really, really, really long. He would do all kinds of crazy stuff, and he would have he had a chain that was 3 feet long sometimes. So I'm kind of using Panthro from the Thundercats as inspiration for General Grievous's chains. And so yeah, I decided to go with the left and right was one set, and then both right hands were one set and both left hands were another set. So I figured I will show you guys the finished product here, or mostly finished. I mean, I'll probably go back and do a little more highlighting, a little more detail. But there is Grievous, and I decided to go with yellow and blue for I wanted each set of nunchucks to be the same color, and I wanted at least one blue set, since that's kind of the color scheme I have going for my logo. So, but I also wanted some yellow ones as well. So that's kind of how it came out. That is pretty much how it looks, and yeah, we had some fun with it, and so I was kind of in good spirits, and we kind of and this chain actually moves a little bit now. I had it on there when I primed him, and I had it on there when I was painting and stuff. So the chain, while it is a jewelry chain, it does have a little bit of paint and stuff, so it doesn't move around quite as much, and it started to nod up a little bit in certain points. But you know what? It was fun. It's a pretty cool look, and I'm probably going to get another core set at some point, and I can do a different Grievous. I've seen some people even put the cloak on him and then manage to still have the double arms underneath, so I'm going to see if I can try and do something like that. Speaking of his cloak, I also, felt like, hey, you know what? Let's do something with this cloak, since I'm not going to use it on him. So on my 3rd unit of battle droids, I decided to put Grievous's cloak on one of the B1 battle droids. And these guys aren't finished yet. They just have the wash basically on them right now. But I put the cloak on him, and it was hard to get the cloak to stay, because the cloak is huge, because Grievous is really, really big. So in order to do most of these droids, if you put that cloak on them, it's going to go back, and it's going to actually interfere with the rear of the base, because it's going to hang down below the base. Or it just wasn't going to work. So what I actually did with this particular guy is I had to glue his legs on backwards, because a lot of them are kind of leaning forward. So what or leaning up or standing upright, and by gluing the legs on backwards, he was leaning forward at just the right angle, that the cloak, while it was too big, and now was like this. And so now there's just 2 or 3 millimeters in between the cloak and the base, so it's not overhanging the base. And I just imagine this is General Roger, and he's like, "I will lead us to victory," and that's a silly little clone voice. Anyway, I had a good time with it. I thought it was pretty fun, and yeah, and that is kind of my little story on how basically something disastrous can lead you to turning basically lemons into lemonade, and then taking it a little bit farther forward, and trying to make the most out of any situation. And that is my little story for you today. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section below. And what do you think of the Grievous nunchucks? Or what color lightsabers would you want to do with your Grievous? That was something that I think there's a lot of options for that would be really fun. I also want to announce some winners. So first off, for the $25 Amazon gift card giveaway, that's going to be Supreme Leader Matt. Thank you for entering. Go ahead and shoot me an email, and you can find my contact information on crabbok.com about, or on the back end of my YouTube channel, and just then I'll get your details there. And also for the here it is, for the Legion Spot Gloss promo from Gen Con. These are really cool. I love the whole way that they make these cards too. They're just freaking really nice. But that is going to go to Stratagon or Stratagon, with the Obi-Wan Kenobi thing there. Yes. So yeah, just make sure you shoot me an email, and I'll get your information, and we'll get you squared away. Now, if you did not win one of these giveaways, don't worry. Don't worry. There's new giveaways starting all the time. So I'll have another one coming up here pretty soon. I want to thank you guys so much for everything. All right. I also want to thank my patrons on Patreon. I got more giveaways coming for you guys too here in the very near future, as well as more promos to give away. Maybe we'll do a different game next time. Maybe we'll do some more Armada. Maybe we'll do X-Wing. I got some Destiny promos I can give away too. I don't know how many of you guys out there play Destiny. Let me know in the comments below. All right, guys, I will talk to you later. I want to thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, have a great day.